Yeah. Welcome to my window, where I'm transparent enough to let you use your screen to peer into my mind. Alright, so before I get into this, I think they're doing construction around here or something like that, so if you hear anything in the background, that's what it is. Alright, let's get into it. When I was younger, right, my sisters always used to watch those music video playlists on MTV and BET. You know, those joints, you know. We usually watched like the hip-hop, the R&B, and soul music. And in a majority of those videos, Latinas or mixed girls or light-skinned girls were the object of affection and attention. Not that this was a bad thing, they were obviously attractive, but you know, they were always the cream of the crop when it came to video vixens or the significant other in love songs. Or even look at shows like Martin. Look at Martin's relationship to Gina as opposed to Pam, or better yet, Shanae. Both darker skinned women. Now, we don't think about that, but our subconscious internalizes that and uses it for future reference. Now, as I grew up, right, I only liked these types of women, and I never wanted anything else. It was all of that fantasy, or like, you know, it was like an all or nothing type of thing. And because of that, like, that was all I found attractive. So one day, like, I was a little bit older, I was still pretty young. We had friends over at the house, and somehow the conversation led to our preferences, blah blah blah. And my sister had put me on the spot, and of course I said light skins and Latinas with the shape, you know what I'm saying, with the tat-out, you know what I mean. But you know, when she asked me why, I was flustered. Like, I honestly didn't have an adequate answer. I was like, what you mean why? I like what I like. And I forget exactly what I said, but it was really bad, man. Like, it was, jeez. I just know that, like, I skipped to a comparison between light skin and dark skin. As in, light skins have this and this and this, and dark skins aren't blah blah blah, you know what I'm saying? Like, it wasn't, and dark skins are this, but like, it's basically, I don't know, it's like a common thing among black men. Where, like, strangely more among dark skinned black men. The sentiment basically says that light skinned women are beautiful because dark skins are the opposite or near opposite. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like comparing two flowers and saying, this rose is really beautiful because it's right next to a sunflower that isn't, it doesn't bloom the same way or something like that. Like, they're both inherently beautiful, they're just different. Why is the beauty of one flower dependent on the ugliness of another? You see what I'm saying? Like, it's a deep-seated topic, and I didn't even realize that it was there. Like, there's nothing wrong with finding a light-skinned woman attractive. There's nothing wrong with that. But why are they inherently better looking because of their complexion or their features, like their hair or their eyes or their facial structure? You know what I'm saying? Like, if you place a light-skinned woman and a dark-skinned woman in front of a black man and say they have like all of society's socially acceptable features, like clear skin, no blemishes, curvy body, etc., you know what I'm saying? The black man may often choose the woman of a lighter complexion. Now, this is not always the case, but I'm saying on the whole, despite the fact that, you know, they're basically equal. And I also think this is why the phrase like foreign was so popular and foreign in previous years, because like no one wanted to be just black. But what's more is that I noticed this way more amongst black girls that were using the phrase more than black guys, which I think may have implied that they would be of more value in that area. But I'm not gonna go into that area. That's for women to talk about. I'm not finna mansplain or do whatever. I'm gonna just leave that there. Anyway, so like after that experience with my sister, I started thinking about it more and more and more, and I started taking it way more seriously. I went on like, I want to say like a year and a half, maybe 2 years, just thinking about it every single day. Like, I remember so many bus rides just going ham, just thinking about that, because it's like, it's more than just a diagnosis, it's finding a cure. I'd ask stuff like, if God blessed me with a woman who was everything I wanted and fully compatible with me, but she was dark skinned, like really dark skinned, would I not accept her? Or like, do I think my sisters are ugly, or like my mother? If you were to ask me at the time, or even any other guy who thinks like this, the first retort would be like, hell no, that's my sister, that's my mother. Basically, that's my family. But even that response, in addition to the no, is inherently self-absorbed, because you basically either feel obligated to say that just because it's some type of family loyalty, or because it's in relation to you. You're basically saying they're not ugly because of their relation to you. Like, I'm not saying that this is always a response. You know, it's just what I've heard most often, and what I've seen in myself at the time as well. Man, that's just the stuff I was thinking about. That should not be a concern. That's probably one of the shallowest things I've ever discovered about myself, and I've never told anyone because I was incredibly ashamed of that bias. And this is still something I go back to these days, where like the thoughts of like, why do dark-skinned women always have to be oiled up or be referenced as chocolate, you know, in order to be seen as appealing? Like, I thought about that like a couple years ago when it first became popping, because, you know, recently dark-skinned women have been gaining more popularity. But I also thought, like, why are darker women like good enough for men to have sex with but not to commit to? Or like, why do we appreciate the negative qualities like rambunctious behavior to darker skinned women, but like we attribute fun and adventurousness and like gentleness with lighter skinned women? Like, that shouldn't be a thing. I mean, there's so much that goes into that I could go into, but I feel like I'm talking too much. So I'll just leave that right there. But I like to go into those same old views because I like to unpack those questions, because they reveal a lot, despite the fact that I don't think that way anymore. There was a lot of stuff, you know, I was dwelling on that for like a year and a half, so, you know, there's a while, and I had to remove it from my system, man. But yeah, I'm talking too much, so I'll just leave it at this. Like, you have a rose, a sunflower, a lotus, a tulip. Don't think, or don't let your reason for the rose being beautiful be in comparison or contrast to how the lotus blooms or how the sunflower shines. You know what I'm saying? Like, each flower is inherently beautiful. And if you don't think so, then maybe you need to reevaluate what you think is beautiful and why. Because there could be a lot of things that are programmed into you that you may not be realizing that are affecting your psyche and the way you view your world. But yeah, yo, I might talk about this again next week, or I might talk about perception versus reality. I wanted to talk about that a lot. Or y'all could give me some things that we could talk about. Hey, I'm down for it. You know what I'm saying? And other news, hey, just share this if you think somebody else thinks like this, and we can actually talk about it, like have a real good discussion. Otherwise, y'all know what to do. You know, like, share, all that good stuff. Smash that subscribe. Okay, you know what to do. Yeah, man, I'm out. Yeah.